Thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name is Andrew, and today we're talking to Eddie Heintz. That's like Heinz ketchup with a T. Director of Hospitality at Caymus Vineyards and the author of the awesome book, Making Welcome. So me and Eddie got a chance to talk about what exactly is hospitality, what management means, all the good, the bad, and so much more. Super fun conversation. Definitely recommend going and picking up his book. Without any further ado, here's Eddie. Thanks for listening to Serves You Right. I love Napa, man. I've only been a couple times, but it is always so much fun.
Well,
like I went last year this time, right after harvest was finished, and it's I think the best time you can go because no one's stressed anymore. It's all emptied out, but people are still like on their A game.
Right. Yeah, it's nice, and because the grapes may not be actually on the vine, but you get the smells of fermentation and everything happening right after harvest.
Yeah. I heard, because I actually did talk to the managing director at Canard earlier in the year, I heard it's been a really good growing season, like one for the books this year.
Yeah, it's been pretty epic. I mean, we've had a good run of epic years last year too, so
yeah,
we're lucky.
Yeah, I mean, after the last 5 years we've had, I think we could use a couple good ones.
100%.
So
100%. Yeah.
Which I think is probably a good way to introduce you to everyone, Eddie. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You wrote this awesome book, Making Welcome, and that's how I found you. But do you mind kind of walking me and the viewer through, who you are and how you got into the hospitality business?
Yeah, 100%. I grew up in the Midwest, so they say there's such a thing as, Midwestern ambiance, as it were, or personality, or work ethic, or however it is you want to call it. But I found myself in San Francisco working at some of the nicer restaurants as a bartender. I grew up, I wanted to be a forest ranger when I first started. Start again.
There's got to be a story behind that. Yeah.
Can we start again for just one more time? Sorry, and then I'll be good.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. And if we need, if you misspeak anything, let me know afterwards. I can always cut something out, so no worries.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all
right.
One more time.
We're jumping on, Eddie. You were talking to me a little bit about that Midwestern hospitality, and I was asking you how you got into the hospitality business and how you ended up writing such an awesome book, Making Welcome. So,
well, thank you for saying the book's awesome. You've heard of Southern hospitality, and there is such a thing as Midwestern hospitality as well. A lot of people associate it with just being kind and nice to people. But I put myself through school planning to be a forest ranger, and I was really involved, loved the nature, and wanted to tie things together in a way that how the environment works with one another, and it's just a very cohesive planet that we have here, and ended up bartending to help pay my way through there. I fell in love with that part of it, and I worked for this company called TGI Fridays, which allowed us to move around from store to store, as we called them. And I ended up on the West Coast in California and basically just kind of fell in love with Northern California. Opened up the TGI Fridays in San Francisco. They're right there at the foot of the Powell Street cable car. And a friend of mine was opening a new restaurant called Bistro Roti, which was on the Embarcadero in San Francisco. And he was sitting at the bar one day because he was the new manager and says, what are you going to do? Work for TGI Fridays your whole life? I'm like, I don't know. What are you thinking about? He goes, well, we're going to open up a place. I need a strong bartender. Why don't you come work at Bistro Roti? So I did. That was my first exposure to San Francisco finer dining, and fell in love with just the idea of the beverage program, i.e. we got to go to Napa and we got to go to Sonoma and visit all these wonderful places. And I kind of got to be known as, just because of my Midwestern upbringing, or at least I'll give credit to my parents, that guy who could take an uncomfortable situation and make it a lot more comfortable for someone. So if there was a problem table, if there was this or that going on, I could kind of step in and smooth things over. And for me, it just seemed natural. But I remember my first review, I was told that that's not very common, that type of personality, as it were. And I didn't really have any formal training, but eventually they made me a manager because that's, a progression that happens within restaurants. Oh, now you're the head, now you're a bartender. You're the head bartender. Now you're going to be a manager. Now you're going to, and so on down the line. But we weren't really given any tools, right? So we had to kind of fly by the seat of our pants, as it were. There were a few books just coming out around there, like The 1 Minute Manager and by Kenneth Blanchard and things like that. But we were just kind of trial and error, as it were, to find out what was going on. And I'd always heard that you hire for hospitality and then you train for service, right? So
Mhm.
you can hire for that personality, but then you train to have them do the tasks or how you want to do it. And I, at the same time, was on kind of a spiritual path. I was studying, different religions and Buddhism, and was doing a lot of reading in that area. And I quickly discovered that I, what I was studying and what I believed was my path personally very closely paralleled what was happening to me in my career as managing people and being in the hospitality industry and in restaurants, right? And so I'm like,
Mhm.
you can take this practice and move it over here, and we can do this, and we can get into more details about that. So I began to call BS on the fact that you can't teach hospitality, because that's what I was told by my manager. You can't teach hospitality. You can only teach service. You need to hire for that. They have to come as the package. But what I soon learned was, by through again experience, was that you can teach hospitality if the person across from you wants to learn it. And
Mhm.
that opened up a whole new path for me to of exploration. And as time went on, I kept looking for that book or whatever that spoke to hospitality in a way that I felt about it. And the closest that came was, of course, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, which was is a great book. But what I found with that book is it stepped right up to the line where he's just getting into the motivation behind hospitality and delivering great hospitality each day. But he didn't step over it. And so I eventually started just taking my notes on the way that I felt about it. And those notes turned into short clips, and those clips turned into chapters, and eventually I saw that there was a book there. And not being a writer, as it were, I thought, okay, well, good, now it's time to get some rejection letters, right? I'm going to start sending this out to some publishers. So I went to my library and I selected like-minded books that and researched that publisher, and if they actually accepted submissions from humans like me, then, as opposed to agents and whatnot. Some say, no unsolicited work. Um, then I put them on the list. I had a list of maybe 8 or 10, and so I sent my first manuscript off. And my worst fear happened. They reached out to me and said, "We love your book. We want to publish it." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this is a scam." But it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah, then we have Making Welcome.
100%.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a funny progression. I live a very similar progression. We talked a little before we started filming. You get on that, like, you've been a bartender and we've trusted you with the booze for 6 months. Now we can progress and see if you can join management. They get every new manager with the 1 minute manager book, I'm pretty sure. It's like the best marketing ever. You get a busy new manager who doesn't know what he's doing to believe that he only needs 1 minute to solve things. It's like, yes, I'll read that book. Yeah,
Well, and it was a short book, so it was an easy read. I mean, a small
exactly.
investment. But you wouldn't believe, I actually introduced, I won't say what restaurant, but my management team to that book, and you wouldn't believe how much resistance there was to. Well, I don't believe that I've got my way of doing it. That how much resistance there was to opening up to a potential different way of thinking about managing people.
Yeah. And even, I could summarize that book in a few seconds. It's like, be direct with people when you need to give them negative feedback. but also be very positive with them when you can. Like that is like 95% of the book. You just wrap it in an allegory and tell a story, but
Yep. No,
yeah,
it's
nothing
true.
crazy.
And to me, there was also an off ramp to that one, and that is, or an amendment, I guess, and that is just, listen to the person who's across from you, listen to what they're saying actively, not just, okay, I have my message to deliver. You're talking to me, you're talking to me, you're talking to me. Okay, now I'm going to deliver my message, which happens all too often. But if you actually connect with that person, outcomes can change, meaning that it may not be a termination. It may just be an adjustment in the way that they work or the way that they need to work. And so you end up saving that person, as it were, who's in front of you. You don't have to go hire somebody else. You just have to make a small adjustment in the way that either you as a company works or they work.
Versus throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just
Correct.
starting over.
Right.
Yeah.
They're never going to
Uh,
get it. They're never going to get it.
yeah, yeah. He's untrainable. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of took us San Francisco, jumped straight to the book, but you had a little bit more in your journey. I know you spent a little bit of time in Hawaii from what I could see, and you actually ended up, I believe, before the book came out, if I'm getting my timeline correctly, at Caymus Vineyards, where I believe you're still at now, correct?
Correct. 10 years I've been there now.
Yeah. So help us connect the dots, because you start noticing that hospitality maybe is something that can be taught. You start putting these things together, but I feel like you got to have a little bit of time in Hawaii to kind of inform the book. It shows up so much. Yeah.
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 I was there, I don't know, 3, 4 years, something like that. And it was probably, for me, I think the only reason the book is here is because of the time I spent in Hawaii. So, and I'm not saying that that encompasses the whole book, but there was a feeling of the spirit of aloha. And I worked for a company um, there that really focused on making sure, as the guests came in, that they had the best possible experience and that they were actually immersed in the Hawaiian culture, the spirit of aloha, the cacao, which is means the subject of we. We are in this together. And there are other cultures that the Hawaiian, the Japanese side of it is omoyari, the subject of we. And there's a lot of different cultures that think that way. Like anytime you are having a conversation with somebody, it's not me and you, it's us. And along with the spirit of aloha and just the opening up of the heart, as it were. By the way, people not familiar with the word aloha, it basically translates directly to my breath goes with you, which is why it can be a hello or
I've always wondered about that. Okay. Yeah.
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 Um,
I forgot about that.
Ha is the breath, and my breath goes with you. It's a type of action, and no matter what's in our heart, if we don't have the action that goes with it, then it just kind of stays in our heart. So back to your question. I had I was getting disenchanted with what was happening in San Francisco because it was the second .com coming on, and people were more interested in the executive chef, the China, the who is the architect, who is this, who is that, than they were on the actual experience. And so I started looking around, and I had a friend in Hawaii who wanted to open up a wine shop. And I said, sure, I'm going to go help you open up the wine shop. So I left San Francisco and we did that. The wine shop didn't really take off, but I met some other friends and eventually ended up at Four Seasons Hualalai, working with them and this great woman by the name of Rosa Say. And Rosa Say, for the short time that we worked together, was a great mentor for me because she is the one that taught me how the Hawaiian spirit flows into delivering great hospitality. So I started, and she supported that. And this was one of the first places I'd ever worked where they focused on taking care of the guest and the staff. So they wanted
Mm.
to treat everybody with I know the words are thrown out there, dignity and respect, but that they actually lived the words. They didn't just, it wasn't about bottom line. It wasn't about this. It wasn't about that. They believed strongly that if you take care of everybody that walks into your establishment, the bottom line will come. And guess what? It did. And I've proven that over and over again since then, that everybody that walks in is important to you. And if you make that effort to connect with them wherever they're at, they could be angry, they could be happy, they could be lost, wherever they're at, just connect with them, find them where they're at that point. And then to rolling out your bells and whistles, whether it's the cuisine, the wine, the cool touches that you do at the table, or in the case of of an insurance company, ask the questions. What are you doing? Because I believe that you can say you're in the restaurant business, you can say you're in the hotel business, you can say that you're in the insurance business or hardware store business, but if you say you're in the business of hospitality, then you should be delivering that hospitality. So in my viewpoint,
Mm.
the hardware store just down the street from me delivers great hospitality. You go in there, how can I help you? I need this part. Oh, actually, you don't need that part. Let me take you in the back. We'll break it down. You just need this little part. And this is $1.25 rather than the $15, That's, to me, that's
Mm.
great hospitality.
If you've been enjoying this so far, please take a moment, hit that like button, subscribe, share with a friend. It'd mean the world to me. All right, that's enough. Back to the talk.
Making that connection, caring, coming to the place where that person's at and carrying it forward using your superpowers, right?
Yeah. No, and I like the hardware example because that's exactly the kind of place that you're going to want to go when you do have that big purchase because you've already got that foundation. You know you can trust them. They've already looked out for you, so they didn't skin you for $10, but when you're spending 100, you're going there.
Yeah.
Just you can trust them.
I am so into spending my money with people who I connect with rather than making it a transaction. You know,
Hmm.
I know once in a while I have to go to a fast food restaurant because of timing or consistency or whatever, or I'm just jonesing for whatever it is. But for the most part, I want to go to places, whether it's my tire company, my insurance company, or whatever, that that I've connected with and who I have a relationship with. And the same goes with restaurants. I can list on one hand the restaurants that I can recommend to people based on my relationship with them. And that relationship goes both ways. So the
Yeah.
reason that I feel that way is because of how they treated me as many times as I've been in there. So,
And I always remember, like, this is from my hometown. I grew up in a small town in Texas called Pampa. And there was this one guy at our Brahms, and it wasn't from the company, but it was someone that was so into the job and having such a good time that
mhm.
you could tell, like, he was approaching that job, which we may not tie in our minds with the source of a fountain of hospitality, but you can approach almost any job with that spirit of hospitality, and you can make it somewhere where you can exercise that option. Like, you say fast food, but I'm like, even there you can find diamonds in the rough here and there.
100%. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. We have the chain here called In and Out, right? And they'll oftentimes,
Which everyone's crazy about. Yeah.
yeah. So if the line gets a little bit too long, then they put somebody out into the line, and they're sitting there with an iPad. So they're basically, firing orders ahead of time much
Mm,
faster. So the line goes a lot faster because these guys know what's coming up. And that person, generally speaking, they have somebody who's really outgoing. Hey, how's it going today? They
hmm.
go, aren't you a little hot? It's like 97 degrees out. He goes, oh, I love my job. It's all good. What can we get for you? It's
Yeah.
just a really great to experience that as a person who's just basically driving up in a car and rolling down your window.
Yeah. How much of hospitality is just people genuinely looking to be seen? That's something that I kept thinking as I was reading your book. Just looking for someone who is actually paying attention to what's happening. You know,
100%.
yeah, okay, fair enough. That's probably a good time. We should probably ask, because you kind of alluded to it. How do you define hospitality? Let's talk about kind of what you're looking for and what you think of when hospitality is mentioned.
Okay. Well, Danny Meyer did a good definition. He said that service is what happens to you, hospitality is how you feel about it, right? And then he takes it a step further and says that the full, he has a technical term for it, I can't remember, like, but the full amount of hospitality is a circle, not a dialogue or others. So you're not basically just being great to that person, but you're also paying attention to how they're receiving it, and you're making adjustments all the time. And
Yeah, because you're
so,
mentioning the party that's like they don't want to talk, they're having a business meal in your book, and it's just like leaving them alone is hospitality. That stuck with me. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The term that I'm familiar with is silent service. You realize that they're having a meeting, that they don't really need to be interrupted. So you're moving in and out and doing all of the touches silently and not with very little interruption. Once the menus are collected and taken away, you're going to let them do their thing. Whereas your second table next door is celebrating a birthday and they want you to celebrate with them. So it's two completely opposed situations, and but yet you as a hospitalitarian can flow seamlessly back and forth between those two because you get it and you're connected and you care, which is a big part of hospitality is caring.
Just caring, yeah. And you use that word hospitalitarian. So what led you to throwing that in? It's I mean it's a cool word.
It's a
I
word.
like the
Yeah,
idea.
it's a word.
Yeah.
I first heard it via Danny Meyer's book, but I did a little bit of research, and it was actually in the lexicon prior to Danny Meyer. So he just kind of pulled it out, dusted it off, and used it. But in I think it describes someone who, because anybody can be nice for a few minutes, right? But
Hmm.
someone who day in and day out cares for the people who they come in contact with, whether it's simple things like opening the door or just walking down the street and you see somebody and you catch their eye and you smile. I mean, how great would that be if it might get a little weird sometimes, but for the most part, if you're walking down the street and everybody's smiling and having a good time, that's lifts your spirits as well. So,
Yeah, I'm reminded of your challenge of making people happy, people going by and like smiling at angry guests.
huh?
I forget if that was you or if you were mentioning someone else you knew.
No, it was a story that was told to me by Karen McNeil, she said that there was this restaurant, and if anybody it was near DC area, if I remember correctly, and anybody who was coming in that seemed a little down or whatever, they would mark that table, meaning they would ID that table as someone who needs to be smiled to more, and waiters would go out of their way delivering food or drinks just to smile and nod at that person to try to get them out of it.
It's kind of like what we do with anniversaries and birthdays by saying happy anniversary, but like you can't be like be happy, but just a quick smile. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's up to the other person, but who can resist? When it comes right down to it, even if it's just for that moment, they can be miserable once they walk out your doors. But while they're there, at least they're having a great experience.
I like it. No, I know it's not yours. It was a quote, but there's a section I wanted to ask you about because it takes a really big part of the book. So it's four agreements: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So I was hoping you could unpack that for us a little bit, how that got in, and why that has such weight with you.
To be honest with you, again, this is another analogy, and I'll just I have nothing to hide. But the reason that I really embraced the four agreements didn't have anything to do with hospitality. It had to do with trying to save my marriage. So,
Sure.
it starts out, be impeccable with your word. I mean, the word is what we have, and impeccable. If you break it down, it says no fault. Impeccability means there's no fault, right? So you're not blaming yourself, you're not blaming other people. You're just trying to speak as honestly and as true as you can without intentionally conflicting harm on anyone else or yourself. Like if you have that internal mind that says I'm such an idiot, well, slow the roll on that one, you know. And then taking things personally, and is no one knows us like we know us, right? If we believe in the concept that each human is the star of their own movie, meaning that I'm going into a movie theater and I sit down and I'm watching it and I'm going like, yeah, this movie's great, man. This is all about my perception of the world, and this is all true because I believe it. And yes, that's the way I come across to people. And yes, this is perfect. And we get up from that seat and we go to the movie theater next to us, and it could be your mother's sitting there next to you, or your best friend is sitting there next to you, and you're watching their movie and you're going, nah, that's not
That
right.
doesn't seem right. Yeah.
I'm just a I'm just a secondary character in their life. I thought I was the main character in this movie, you know? So if you start to realize that everybody is the main character in their own movie, then why would you take anything personally? It has nothing to do with you, right? So, and professionally, we have two safety vests, vests of armor, as it were. One is that nobody knows us, right? So a perfect stranger, even your spouse or whatever, may not know you 100%, right? They don't really know all of your. We don't share everything with it. We have feelings that we keep to ourselves, or experiences that we keep to ourselves, or whatever. So nobody really knows us. And the second one is, if you're working, you're professional. You're not representing yourself. So when someone comes up and says bad things to you, or what you would interpret as bad things to you, because that's up to you, right? Then you're not responding as I'm not responding as Eddie Heintz. I'm responding as the director of hospitality for Caymus Vineyards. And how would the director of hospitality at Caymus Vineyards respond to this? And so if you take yourself out of it and not take things personally in hospitality, it helps you keep centered and not become reactionary. And then, don't assume. What's the antidote for assumptions? Ask questions. Listen, don't just assume because somebody's got a Rolex that they're going to give you a big tip. Because the guy sitting over there with the Timex wristwatch and then the sloppy clothes is probably Steven Spielberg, because that's how he dressed, So you never really know. And the same goes with your assumptions, internal assumptions. Oh, they're looking at me mean. No, they're not looking at you mean. They're thinking something unhappy, and they just happen to be glancing your way.
Yeah.
So it could be a million other things. So don't believe your own stuff either. Ask questions. Can I help you? Whatever question begs to be asked at that moment to help clarify the situation. And then just do the best you can every day, because that's all that you can do. You can't, people say give 110%. Somebody may as well just say give me 110% of your money, because you can't. You can't.
Yeah, it's
100% is
impossible.
all there is, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes your best is going to be not so good if you're ill or just in a mood. And sometimes your best is going to be the best you've ever been. But know that at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I didn't do that good today, but I did my best. Given how I feel and the lack of sleep that I've had, I did my best. And as long as you can do that every day, then you're going to be in good shape. The biggest thing is not to be hard on yourself. Don't be the judge for others and yourself, and understand that everybody's got their own thing going on. And when we're talking about connecting with people, you're connecting with someone who has had the last 24 hours without you. Unless, in most situations, you don't know what's happened in those last 24 hours. It has nothing to do with you.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, people come in with their bags filled with all sorts of baggage. I mean, you've worked in restaurants, so you never know what happened right before they came in. And people take it so personally too. They really do. And I'm saying that like I'm immune to it, but I know I do too. But
Well, you,
everyone
you
does.
remember the
Yeah.
Princess Bride, when the guy who was in the revenge business, right? That's not
Mhm.
us.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, the revenge business isn't all it's cracked up to be." When the guy that's hunting for the six-fingered man, right? In the movie The Princess Bride, he goes, he was all down and out, and he like what's going on? And he said, "Well, the revenge business isn't all it's cracked up to be." And that's not the business that we're in. Is, oh, they treated me bad, so I'm not going to do this for them, or it's like that's not the business that we're in. Just hold true to yourself, because you're not going to feel good about yourself by slighting that person who allegedly treated you bad.
No, I do have to give you kudos. I've read books about hospitality that it almost reads like maybe this person hasn't worked in hospitality in a long time. There's almost this like fake glowy aspect to it. But I feel like, I'm just gonna see if I could find one of the times when I just saw, like, I feel so seen when I was reading some of your things. It's like you write it a way that's very clearly. There's one time that you're talking about a guest that was angry, and that's the one I was trying to remember. And you're saying if they can't calm down or they can't use like appropriate language, there's going to be a point where I can't do anything. Like you include these caveats where it's like I can tell that this person has dealt with irrationally angry people in the past. Like I can see you're from the front lines, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I can't say I've heard it all because once in a while I hear something new, but
Hmm.
yes, it's true. And I borrow the line from the Ritz Carlton, and that is, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. If you
Yes.
can't behave in a way that reflects that, then we're not going to be able to serve you. And that a lot of times will calm them down and say, okay, 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 whew, all right, I probably got a little bit out of hand there, or not. And the crazy thing is, and this is something I tried to pass on to waiters, not crazy thing, but the truth is, if you allow them to remain in your place of business, they are your guests. We treat them as guests until we ask them to leave. And once they leave, then that's fine. But as long as we allow them to remain, then they're our guests. We don't shortcut. We don't do this. We don't do that. We manage as best we can their behavior so they're not interrupting other people or causing a disturbance or God forbid any safety problems. But
Issues. Yeah, yeah.
sometimes you just have to say tonight's not the night. I'm
Yes.
afraid that we're not going to be able to serve you anymore. You're welcome to come back another night, but this just isn't your night in this restaurant. So checks on us. You guys have a nice safe evening. Feel free to come back another day if you care to.
And it's rare. It's those are the few and far in between. And usually
Thankfully,
there's been a little bit of alcohol involved. Like, let's be honest. Yeah, you're in Napa. I'm in the middle of the Midwest, and the people out here like their bush lights. So we see those things.
it
Yeah.
happens, but not like you said, very infrequently. We could
Hmm.
count on two hands the number of times we've had to resort to that.
Yeah. You talk about another experience that actually I think is probably more common. There was an instance where a husband and wife duo came to the restaurant and they'd built up the trip to California and they had to such great heights that the server is doing nothing inappropriate. They're, just kind of going through the motions, but the lady was extremely upset. It just wasn't living up to the standards that she had put in her mind. She was expecting so much more. I think do you mind telling us a little bit about that story if you know the one I'm talking about?
I
Because
do.
I thought that was powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And that's the thing is when it's the same way in any major city with any star chef or brand that people love and they have a great history and they want to tell you all the stories about how many their grandfather did this and it's been on the table with us for and so on and so on. And they have those expectations and we need to meet them there, right? So in the case that you're referring to, the server hadn't done that, didn't do anything wrong in their view. Come on, really, this is just another experience at our restaurant. It's always good. I'm not doing any touch points that are incorrect. I'm just not kowtowing because I have other tables to deal with, right? Which is what the manager also helps with. If there's a table that needs a little bit more attention, then the manager can step in and give them that attention. So in this case, she was literally crying by the ladies' room, and when my host made me aware of it, and I went over and said, "Are you okay?" And she basically said, we've been looking forward to this. This is our anniversary, and we've been saving up for 10 years, and chef is our favorite chef in the world, and we're just, and the waiter doesn't care. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I think the waiter does care, but maybe just not showing it in the right way. You do what you need to do. I'm going to go over to your table, and I'm going to make sure that this is the best evening you've ever had. She goes, okay. And so we did. And it wasn't that hard. We just gave him a little bit of special attention. I sent out an appetizer, and I sent out an appetizer on purpose that I knew they wouldn't order. It was shaved raw Brussels sprouts that were done in this amazing way. Like, first of all, most people don't like Brussels sprouts, but shaved raw. And I'm like, you
Mhm.
have to try this. This is the most amazing. And they all like, oh my God, I thought I hated Brussels sprouts. Now I don't. And at the end, we gave them a signed copy of the chef's book, and they left thrilled. They were just happy. And it didn't really take that much effort. It's not like I sat down at the table with them the whole night or anything. I just checked in maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. I mean, and you add it up. I don't know if there's anything besides that, but Brussels sprouts, a book, it doesn't sound like it costs a restaurant very
No,
much to move things around,
no, a lot of
Probably a couple of happy anniversary
yeah,
reminders and
yeah.
yeah.
But as you said earlier, they felt seen. That was their
Hmm.
whole thing. All they wanted to do was be seen.
Yeah. And I think one of the big impediments that comes up through your book, and one of the things I wanted to bring up, is a lot of people don't practice seeing what's happening around them, don't practice seeing others because of the endless monkey chatter in the mind. And I noticed Eckhart Tolle had a huge place, kind of his ideology and his philosophy in your book. So, when did you interact or first come upon him, and like tell me a little bit about that?
Well, The Power of Now was the first book that I'd read by him, and I had difficulty unpacking that, but it made sense to me because what he was describing by saying the now is all we really have, right? Was describing how on earth could I work 12 to 14-hour shifts, and on my walk home uphill in San Francisco, you know, how
Feel
could I
light.
feel like
Yeah.
this was an awesome day? How could I possibly what was it that was happening? What reward? I didn't I don't I was a manager. I wasn't a tipped employee. I didn't make a lot of extra money that day. A lot of the waiters were making more money than I was, right? But why was I happy, and why was I like an inch off the ground walking home? My legs were tired, my feet hurt, or bags under my eyes, but I felt great. And how was that possibly explained? And Eckhart Tolle, basically said that when we live in the moment, everything else disappears. The future, the past, all your worries, all of that, and when you spend the day connecting with one person after another who, if they don't start out that way, eventually turn to happiness. And you're next, you start out by him saying, I really don't like this table, and you end up saying, I really want you to come to my daughter's birthday party, and
Yeah.
those things are not that weird. It seems odd, but they see you as someone who they want to spend time with. And we get invited as people in this industry, we get invited to a lot of things, that doors open that would not have been opened without making that effort and that connection. I once was sitting at a brewery, and the guy sitting next to me, and this is I'm a guest, right? And I just say, hey, so how's it going? What beer are you drinking? He was the conductor at the symphony in San Francisco. And so,
Awesome.
conversations open, and you just never know who's sitting next to you. But it all has to do with bringing yourself out of your head, as it were, and just experiencing the situational awareness around you. And
Mhm.
whether people say situational awareness is always has a negative connotation, like, a suitcase left on a curb in the airport, that's, oops, that could be bad, or
If you see
or
something, say something.
or
Yes.
somebody, yeah, lurking at the fence in the elementary school or whatever, situational awareness. But it works both ways. If you're in the airport and you take your headphones off, man, humanity is some of the best entertainment in the world. Just watching people and how they're interacting and struggling, and who knows, something could happen where you could actually get up from your seat and help somebody, or at the grocery store, you see somebody struggling with kids and whatnot, open the door for them, give them a few minutes to gather themselves together and get on their way. And they're so appreciative. Or in the case that I had 2 kids, my 2 daughters, and my my shopping cart went off the curb and tipped over, and the first thing on top, of course, was the olive oil. Olive oil's go bottles going everywhere, and these two young ladies are helping me pick everything up. And one went in and got a mop, or got somebody to bring a mop out, and it's just like just out of nowhere, two people walking by were just so helpful at that crisis moment. So it's just being aware and actually stepping in and taking action.
Makes sense. That makes sense. I want to kind of circle back to kind of how you started, where when you started, you had this ability to step in, calm down angry people. And I'm wondering, because I had I believe, similar journey where I started in hospitality, just started in a restaurant, and people saw that there was something natural in me. I wonder if there's something in people that are drawn to hospitality, the people that have it naturally, that kind of pushes people to dig in and kind of explore these things. And I know you're trying to say that we can train it in people, but I do think some people just have like a propensity towards it.
I
Do
agree.
you feel like that's true? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's easier if you do have a propensity to it. But think if your background, you weren't raised that way, or your environment didn't teach that, and then you walk into an environment where it does, it may seem odd and you're going to be awkward. But if you see that desire in someone, then you can help guide their path to get them there with you. I had
Hmm.
a good example, and I think I mentioned it in the book. My good friend, I can mention his name because he and I have talked about it, is Tom Dickinson. He's now a principal in Sacramento, California. But he, when he first started, it was his first restaurant job. He's a tall guy, kind of, he's got long appendages, and we hired him as a host, and he would, like, somebody say, "Where's the restroom?" And he would, like, point and clothesline somebody, kind of a thing. How we do, keep our arms in, gesture with your palm, kind of a thing. And it's just to the point to where I'm like, well, maybe this isn't going to work out. And then he walks in and he goes, "Eddie, I get it." I'm like, "Okay, Tom, what do you get?" He says, "Treat everybody like they're your grandmother." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, let's try that." And next thing I know,
Decent
he's
start.
coming out from behind the podium. He's taking ladies' arms. He's walking them. He's pulling out the chairs. So a lot of times all you really need to do is connect with that person on a more personal experience. Treat people like they're your grandmother. I mean, I'm not sure that I treated my grandmother any differently than I did my mother or anything like that, but it certainly worked for him.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but without asking questions, without making the effort to see that person who's in front of you, because I saw that he had what it took. I just couldn't seem to get it out of him, and I don't know
Almost.
how I could identify what I saw. It's been several years, but I just knew that he was kind hearted and wanted the best for people.
Do you believe in people when you meet them,
I
when you're hiring them?
100%.
Yeah, I do too. Sometimes to my detriment.
Yeah.
I'm always like, well, I mean, I really liked him. He just doesn't have experience. Let's give him a shot. Let's see if he can be a busser for, like, I'm always like, let's give him a shot.
Well, I would rather hire somebody who I connected with no experience than hire a veteran who with all of these bad problems. So
I,
so
that's always where you get the
we're
problems
I'm
too.
leaning
Yeah.
more towards inexperience and good attitude than I do somebody with a built up resume that's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, well, I don't work Monday lunch shifts." And okay, that's fine. You don't have to.
Turns out you don't work Monday night shifts, Tuesday night shifts either. It's
Uh-uh.
don't work any of
We'll
those
just
shifts.
eliminate all of them in case we have a problem.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything in the book or anything in your work that you think we missed and should talk about before we're done today?
Um, I think just a general overtone of, and this has been talked about on a lot of other levels besides hospitality, but I think the more that we add hospitality in our life, it comes back tenfold. So even though that person across from you may appear to be, based on the way they're dressed, what their messaging is, whatever it is, may appear to be someone who you might dislike. Give them the chance. I know that there's a lot of, they say that people keep talking about the division in the U.S. Well, we've got a lot more in common than we do otherwise. And I have friends from all political spectrum. And the one thing that we all agree on is treating people with kindness is one of the most important things that can happen right now. And the only way to do that is not to sit back and say, "Oh, I'm a nice person," but to actually get out there and show action and treat people with kindness. Hold that door for somebody. If you see somebody struggling with a stroller, say, "Hey, let me take this out of your hand. I'll walk you to the car so you can put your child away," or whatever. May seem kind of weird, like I wonder what that person wants or whatever. To some people, they may say, "Oh, no, thank you, I'm good," but you offered. You're showing that we're all kind of in this together. And that's, I think, not just a good way to approach hospitality, but a good way to approach life. Hence the subtitle to Making Welcome, which is, what is it? Oh, yeah, Enriching Life and Business with Hospitality.
Yes.
I forgot my own subtitle. So it's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
notice that it says enriching life first and business in hospitality, because that's what it comes down to. I want to live a rich life. I want to live in a space that I feel safe in, and the people around me care about me, and so I choose my friends. I won't say carefully, but I unfriend people readily. I don't mind that a bit.
With intention,
With
if you will.
intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Yes.
this
Yeah.
person's, I have friends that I am still in contact with, that when I get back together with them, I'm going, that's why I don't spend that much time with you. It's not working for me. And that's fine. It's nothing against the other person, because, again, they're the star of their own movie. This is the path that they're on. This is what they want to do. And that's fine. I'll give them 100% of the right to do that. It's just not something that I want to join in on. Just because I was friends with them once doesn't mean that I have to stay friends with them. It's my choice to form my environment.
And extend them the hospitality if you so choose.
Yeah, well, and by to be honest with you, by allowing them to go into their environment where they're feeling that same thing, that is hospitality. It's the same way with terminating employees. I fully believe that us as managers are responsible for making sure that if an employee isn't working out, we've done everything we can to adjust and compensate. And if they're still not working out, where they can be appreciated and they're going to succeed. It's just not your place, because for whatever reason, it's infinite how many reasons, but you owe them that separation to go out and find it. And I've believed that for a long time, and it is shown to be true. Many people who I've terminated have come back to me and say, thank you for doing that. You did it very respectfully,
Needed that.
and I
Yes.
needed that because I needed a kick in the butt. So it's important. Let people do what they want to do, but do it in a respectful way.
Yeah. No. That's definitely a good point. I've taken many years to get from a terrible, terrible manager to a halfway decent one. And I'm still on that journey, but I think anyone who's been in any form of management can think back to an early hire or parting of ways where you could have done more. You weren't clear at the beginning. There's always this endless list, but even now, there's some people. There's the guy I let go of most recently, like, I know that there will be a point where it's going to be good for him. Like, you do get to a point where it's like, if we could have, I've given him every charitable chance. I was very clear about any infractions. I gave him every opportunity, and you hope for the best. And that story is still unfolding. So we'll see what happens there. And
Yeah.
that's how
Well,
it
and
goes.
I'm thinking that, like you said, eventually he's going to come back and say, hey, no hard feelings. Thank you for doing that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And as it
And
has,
then another one where I did the right thing, and this has been a couple of years back, and it was involving someone who was struggling with alcohol. They're sober now, and it was the right thing. And it just, sometimes that, I mean, it's that this is the industry, and sometimes you do have to say, like, hey, like, you can't work here anymore, and I hope you get help, and I'm here if you need help, you know?
yeah.
So,
I had the rare
yeah.
opportunity of, when I moved to Hawaii, I saw all my managers right before, my manager friends, I should say, before I left, and I was gone for 3 or 4 years, and I came back, and so I had a snapshot in my mind of what
That's
these
cool.
these people, how they were, what they look like. And I'll be honest with you, people in the restaurant and wine industry should get hazard pay, because in those 4 years they had aged and they looked a lot different, and their minds were working
Mm.
differently, and it was just an interesting thing. And we all enjoy. I drink. We all enjoy alcoholic beverages, and so it's definitely something that is common in the restaurant industry. I say
Mm.
our industry, but in the restaurant and hotel too a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, all over the place in hospitality. I will always remember Tony Abuganum. I think you know him too.
Mhm.
He was giving a talk at, I think it was Arizona Cocktail Week, and talking about his brother and about people he's known in the industry who've overindulged. He said, you always got to make sure that you are driving the ship. You're in charge of the party and the party isn't running you. And I think back to that and like, great advice.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tony. Yeah.
yeah. I just saw
Yeah.
Tony a couple weeks ago in Las
Oh, yeah.
Vegas, and Ross Simon,
You said that now that I think back
too.
about it. Awesome. 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 Well, Eddie, where should the listener online, where should they go to find out more about you? I know you have a website and
Yeah, I do. I'm
yeah,
not. I'm disappointed. Not disappointed. I've been neglecting my website, so I need to. But feel free to reach out to me at any point. It's just easy. It's Eddie EDDIE at eddieheintz.com
super
directly.
easy. Yeah.
You can also reach out to me through the website. But yeah, get the book, pass it along. I probably have purchased 30 copies of the Four Agreements because I keep passing it on, right? So I just
To everyone.
keep doing it, so mark
That's
up,
awesome.
get the book, mark it up, shoot off questions. I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time about any part of it. So
Awesome. Awesome. And anyone who's listening didn't have pen and paper at that moment, I will have all that in the show notes so you can just click over and check it out. Thanks for coming and talking to us today, Eddie. Really appreciate
Andrew,
it.
it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening. If you have not, please like, subscribe, and also leave a comment on this show. Every interaction is really, really appreciated. I respond personally to every message, comment I get. Episodes of this show come out every Tuesday, every week. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.